February 2023. Somewhere in the Atlantic, JJ sat on the deck beside the easy chair belonging to the owner of this yacht, who would, by now, would be wandering around in some sort of stupor, wondering when he had left the thing. The air was chilly, and JJ looked across to Aiden, who has wrapped himself up in the blanket. Does he care he has a sibling? Aiden asked JJ. He had put the yacht into cruise, compass tracking northeast. It would take several hours to get to Wilmington and another hour to get to the first islands of the Outer Banks. Sibling, thought JJ. Not brother, not sister. He does, JJ conceded, looking up to Aiden from where he was sitting, on the deck, near the chair. He is waiting for his brother to come back to the OBX, so he can talk to his brother. JJ put the word in air quotes to get the message across. Aiden sat up, concerned. Relax, I won't say anything. I haven't so far. Aiden pulled the blanket around her shoulders. I'm guessing it was all bluff about Key, then, when we had our, he airboxed, fight. Unless he mimed a particularly vigorous-looking French kiss, then turned round and grinned to Aiden. Aiden said nothing, but let a small smile spread across her face. Boys, all the same. Full of testosterone, too much pent-up energy. Doogie, the same. Where was he? Aiden wondered, not knowing she was entirely wrong, driving one of his dad's taxis, by now. You don't have to tell me anything, JJ added, looking over to Aiden. I know I don't. I'm, like, just the guy that stopped you from being gunned down in the street. You have experience in these matters. JJ turned round and got to his feet. He made to move quickly, as if drawing a gun from an imaginary holster at his hip. Aiden scrambled to her feet, fear as real as the dawning sun filling her, and backed away, blanket held close to her chest. JJ stopped, and looked at her. Sorry if I scared you. I wasn't. Aiden broke off, unable to bring herself to lie. The sight of Rafe Cameron on a street in Charleston was enough to make her jittery. Just ... We were talking about Key. Your friend. Girlfriend? Yeah. Nah. This time it was JJ's turn to look uncomfortable. I wanted there to be ... There was chemistry. He looked up to Aiden. You, a guy? Aiden shook his head. Not like that. My best friend, Doogie. He was with me, through everything. My parents, adopted parents, liked him. We went to school together. We ... got into a lot of trouble. Aiden took some steps towards the chair again. Gentleman that he was, JJ took a step back and let her sit back down again. We would hang out in one of his dad's taxis. He shouldn't gave driven, but he did. We would look at the bridges that cross to Wales. We would hang by the channel, take boats out. Aiden looked out to the sea, watching the waves crest a little. The wind direction was giving them a little added boost. Aiden turned and sat back down. I was never unhappy when Doogie and I were together. Mum and Dad always took me back in. But I knew there was something not right. They weren't like other mums and dads. And then I found my birth certificate. Aiden patted her shirt. It was always on her, that which had driven him out of Bristol and into the wide, tumultuous Atlantic. What? I just like listening to how you talk. Aiden shot JJ a look. Sorry, he demonstrated, back to his latest rendition of an accent. It had softened, living at Carla's house with Renfield. I hung out with my Scottish friend, and we went hither and thither. JJ put on a faux pirate accent. I do not sound like that. Aiden glared at JJ Maybank, then gave him a brief smile. But we are enemies again when we get back off this boat, she told him, melancholy settling on his shoulders again. Enemies. As soon as we get back to Kildare, JJ agreed. Here. Want some? Kumquats. Kumquats, JJ imitated. What would you call them? She caught the packet of fruit. Is there another name? Small oranges. You have some first, she told him. Prisoners only take food from their captors once it has been tried first. Prisoner ears. Prisoners who have any sense, Aiden told him. That's just for emperors, he told her. Food tasters? I don't care. I'm hungry enig. But, Aiden broke off. I ate last night. I can manage only one or two. She had seen that look in a face before, that of hunger, and too much pride to admit it. You are a limbery, JJ asked her, eating the fruit as if he had never seen food before. Aren't you? Like. Loaded. I can't inherit the house or the money, Aiden told him. Carla did not recognize me in law. But before the house and the money go to their next owner, I can visit. I visited. With Key and Pope, JJ told Aiden. He had an offer of school from her. And then we found out about Denmark Tanny and the cross. Limbury was using him to get the shroud. Aiden pulled it from her bag. She watched his face change to one of outraged incredulity. You had it wrapped up your gear. It's just a cloth. JJ told him. Quietly, John B gave it to me. He thought for a second. Big John must have had it. Big John was the when Carla died, Aiden clarified. But it's not what they thought it was, she added. Big John took it from the artifacts of a priest who had been on the Royal Merchant. He made John B tell her it was the shroud from the cross, and couldn't have been. JJ's face fell as he realized the trick that must have been played. Why not? It cured my mother. Her condition improved until she was in remission. It was liver failure that killed her in the end. She was a big drinker. Except, Aiden added, looking at the cloth, that this cloth comes from far deeper in history. Are you going to say Blackbeard? JJ asked her, the air rushing through his hair suddenly. They had changed course and Aiden had glimpsed the South Carolinian coastline through the clearing sea mist. She turned, and gave JJ as roguish a smile as he had given her. Not to my enemy, Aiden told him, then shivered, realizing how cold she had become from the spray from the sea. JJ picked up the blanket from the chair that she had left and approached her. Aiden did not object when he put it around her shoulders. Their hands caught for a moment. It would be a moment that Aiden would remember in the months to come, when the world seemed frightening and all hope seemed to have gone. Just a lad and a lass and a boat that could sail to anywhere. The engine spluttered and the keel tracked a little. Wilmington showed her, pointing over her shoulder, JJ's other hand resting on the small of her back. Gotta keep out of sight of the Coast Guard. This is bound to have been reported by now. Stolen? Aiden was about to say, as JJ retreated from her and to the drive stick, the spell breaking. But, of course it would have been. She watched as the young man in front of her handled the boat as easily as walking, and was reluctantly impressed her as he took control of the millions of dollars worth of joy-ridden yacht and maneuvered it in the inner reef. I'll put it with the other boats, he told Aiden, confidently, as they got to the marina at Figure 8, looking over his shoulder and grinning to her. I'll tell them I thought it was a Teternite, if anyone asks. They don't usually. JJ shrugged, and shook his head. Cooks, agreed Aiden. In that moment understanding that some people were so rich that they would not be bothered to find out where their expensive yacht was, as if it were a quarter coin they had mislaid. Aiden stepped from the yacht, and felt a hand under her elbow. Her heart melted for a moment at this young man's manners, before turning round and offering him his, in a gesture of camaraderie. Thanks, he said, jumping past her. Aiden was about to push him, humorously, but remembered herself in time. Her hand tightened around her backpack. She, as Aiden, was on the OBX, was in trouble here. She must get to Tannehill and then back to Charleston, somehow, find out about the skull, and anything to do with that governor's dinner in 1930, and evade the police. At least she had given the young man his possessions back. Aiden had felt bad, in the end, for taking those after he had shared his breakfast with her. And now this. Aiden looked around at the marina. He had out himself at risk to save her life. He was about to stride away. The young man who had, she remembered on balance, had pulled a gun on her himself, twice, when she put her hand to his shoulder. He stopped, and turned back to her. Than you, JJ. Much appreciated. JJ nodded his head, briefly, and smiled. Thank you for the company. Quits? Aiden asked. Quits, agreed JJ, and gave her that grin again. Enemies for life? Enemies for life, JJ confirmed. Then, he watched the girl Aiden Drummond cross the marina decking and race off down the coast until she was out of sight. 88,888,888. The OBX. The ferryman who had brought the ship from the mainland called the answer through the loudspeaker when Doogie Morn went to ask the captain where Thet were. The OBX. The Outer Banks. Where the call had come in from. He had found where she was, his daring friend who must have been so distressed that she had made a call to his home, of all places. He had something to say to her. In the meantime, the weather seemed good, and the scenery was beautiful. Not Western Isles beautiful, but fine enough for photographs. And then he could find the Brooks boat hire. And Doogie touched in his pocket. Tommy Ross, in the office of the police national computer, had not only traced Adeline's call, but had given him another contact. He read the name again. Doogie looked out at the surf. For February, the weather was good, the surf was fine. If he were to find a board, he might like to sample the waves off the coast of this Outer Banks place. He strode towards the beach, and thought back to the scrap of paper in his pocket. John B., he murmured aloud, before looking back to the waves again.